As an American teenager in the early 90s, I grew up watching the final days of the Soviet Union. I was fascinated at the images and icons of this superpower that was my country's greatest rival for the last 50 years. In 1997, I lived in the former Soviet Republic of Belarus for over a year. I fell in love with a country and a people that I was taught to hate. Then one day, after my return to the US, I was flipping through the newspaper, and I saw an image that would draw me back to this fascinating place 10 years later. I've returned to the city of Minsk, located halfway between Warsaw and Moscow. I've come not only to explore the time that Lee Harvey Oswald spent here 45 years ago, but also to confront my own ghosts. I feel a bit voyeuristic, standing in the park and staring through the lens into his past. I end up taking more pictures of the park and its monuments rather than finding the trace that Oswald left behind. I even start filming my own shadow, and I realize I've become one of these monuments frozen in past glories. I decide to ask people if they have any idea about Oswald's story in Minsk. Young people who can't remember what life was like during Soviet times are eager to find out what I'm doing here with my camera.
Мы-то знаем, но саму всю историю не очень.
But when I mention Oswald, they don't seem to know much about his story at all.
Ой, мы как-то об этом не задумывались. Ну просто живет.
Может, это твои родители знают? Для того, чтобы картоши работали.
Да, конечно. Я знаю о том, что Ли Харвей Освальд какое-то время жил в Минске. Это стало известно из сообщений прессы. И вот тогда, по-моему, в газете «Аргументы и факты» была печатана статья, что действительно в Минске жил человек по имени Ли Харвей Освальд. Мы знали, что расследование убийства Кеннеди в США пришло к выводу, что именно Освальд был убийцей и стрелял в Кеннеди. Оказывается, Ли женился на белорусской девушке и работал на одном из предприятий Минска. А почему вообще американцы приезжают сейчас в Беларусь или раньше приезжали в Советский Союз, сказать трудно. Может быть, кого-то привлекает вопрос идеологический. Я помню, было много сообщений в нашей прессе об Анжеле Дэвис, глава Компартии США, которая боролась за права коммунистов в Америке, но почему-то она не приехала и не стала жить в Советском Союзе, хотя по своим убеждениям была коммунисткой. Были еще некоторые люди, которые приезжали сюда из Америки, но, по-моему, долго никто из них наших реалий не выдерживал, и они возвращались обратно.
Oswald liked the fact he was one of the only Americans living in Minsk, and this made him feel unique. But he soon became frustrated with everyday Soviet life and applied for a visa to return home. Then he met 18-year-old pharmacy student Marina Prusakova, and after knowing her for only 6 weeks, they married and soon had their first child, a daughter, 10 months later. Their love was fast and intense, but problems soon started to seep into their marriage. He was extremely secretive and lied about his intention to stay in the USSR, and while they celebrated the New Year with friends, she had no idea that he would soon arrange to bring their family back to the US. I look out the window and I think of my experience in this place 10 years ago. What did it feel like to abandon one's homeland and become immersed in a completely different way of life? I know this feeling all too well. Then, I meet a woman who knew all about Oswald, and while I'm interviewing her, I realize that she is strikingly familiar. She looks like a girl from my past.
That later this person was involved in assassination of the American president.
Okay, great. And I also used to live here 10 years ago too.
Really?
There was something in particular that I fell for when I experienced my first love with a girl named Svetlana. I don't even have a photo of her, but I remember our first date. I brought over a bottle of Hungarian wine, and we indulged in the most simplistic of starving student fare.
Почему она не закричала? Почему не закричала?
The last night I spent with Svetlana was at a jazz concert at the Dzerzhinsky Club in KGB headquarters. I remember sitting next to her and looking around the room at all the Soviet generals and party officials, saying to myself, "Nice going, 007. How are you going to get yourself out of this one?" The intensity of our relationship was too much for me to handle, and I avoided her for the next 2 months, and then moved back to the States. Even though we still kept in touch by writing letters, she eventually disappeared from my life. But this was all so long ago. I've realized that it's not that much about Oswald at all.
He's just joking.
Кто я? He's crazy.
Спасибо за все.
Ты хороший человек, Тома. Приезжай к нам, приезжай. Надолго связи теряться не должны.
Really, going back to Minsk was to pick up a part of me that I'd left behind there 10 years ago. By attempting to make sense out of Oswald's tragic story, I've been able to explore who I am.
Chief, do you have any concern for the safety of your prisoner in view of the high feeling among the people of Dallas over the assassination of the president?
No, but precautions necessary. Precautions will be taken, of course.
We've been shot. We love you.